If you're aspiring to make that leap from VP to Chief Marketing Officer, you might want to be aware that it's a bit of a bloodbath up there. Of all the C-suite, CMO tenure is by far the shortest. Why is this, and what can be done? Hi, I'm Justin Rubner, host of High Intent, where we explore unfiltered lessons from the front lines of modern marketing. Today, Bill Harper is going to weigh in on the CMO revolving door. Bill is Chief Creative Officer at BrandBossHQ. He helps businesses discover their true purpose and turns that insight into exceptional experiences that bind brands and their customers together. If you follow marketing content, you'll see he's an absolute content machine and is a recognized brand strategy expert. Let's do this. Bill, welcome to High Intent. You're one of the first guests on here, and I'm very happy to have you on.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation.
So have a little stat to start this off with. So according to Forrester, 2025 report, only 58% of Fortune 500 companies have a marketing executive in the C-suite, and that's down from 63% last year. And B2B companies are definitely leading the charge, with CMO presence dropping from 48% to just 42%. In addition, as we've already talked about, CMO tenure is widely reported to be the shortest of the entire C-suite. So as a serial agency owner, that's you, currently at BrandBossHQ, you've worked with countless CEOs and CMOs. Why do you think this is happening?
Well, first off, let me say that I'm absolutely thrilled that it is for my clients. And the reason that I say that is because the further that the C-suite gets away from creativity, the faster we get to take their market share. So I'm absolutely thrilled for every one of my clients that these folks are jumping like lemmings off the side of a cliff. As for why they're doing it, the simple answer is because they've come to believe that ROAS and AI are going to replace all of the creative necessities that they have. And if you take a look at what was just released in the McKinsey report in terms of what Europe is going to do in 2026, you're going to very quickly find that the brands there have realized that performance marketing has played itself out. There's nothing wrong with performance marketing, and that's a really hard admission for me to make. But the truth of the matter is that there's nothing wrong with performance marketing, provided that it has strategy and storytelling and differentiation already woven into it. When you try to replace the top of the funnel with middle and bottom of the funnel by themselves, you get a real problem. So your question was, why the transition? And I think the biggest insight that I've gotten over the last couple of years, and we actually did a study on this 2 years ago, was that the role of the CMO has changed radically. So it used to be that the CMO's job was to be the shepherd of the brand. And their responsibility was not only setting expectations internally about how the brand would come to life, but then also reaching out to external partners to coordinate and budget and, all of that. Now, they are much more frequently used as problem solvers. We don't have a social media thing. Let's hire a social media CMO to come in for X number of months to put that into place or what have you. And so CMOs now have suddenly become these free safety jockeys that run from company to company, problem solving without looking at the system holistically, or at least they're not given the opportunity to look at it holistically. So this is a major shift in the way that the C-suite considers the creative portion of the executive leadership team.
Like the increase in fractional work, is that probably tied to each other?
I can only imagine that it would be. And I think probably what CEOs are saying to themselves is why pay? Why pay for a person full time? I don't need them. I'm going to get it from the agency. Or they say the opposite. I'm going to hire a CMO and they're going to do my creative work, right? I see that all the time. And what business leaders don't understand is that one individual can't replace a team, even with AI, even with fractional support. They just can't do it. The fractional person that you're working with is going to be good in terms of seeing the ground, being objective, and having opinion, but they're not going to be there to play the political warfare that's necessary to actually bring a brand to life. And so what you've really done as a C-suite when you've isolated the CMO, and guys like you and I have been around long enough to refer to it as the small C at the C-suite, right? So the lowercase c, which has always been marketing, now has been further insulated away from the decision-making process by inviting fractional to replace full-time. And so now it's almost like the lowercase c became a postscript c. Like, it's such an afterthought at this point. But I think what Europe is showing is that the pendulum is swinging back. The race to the bottom in terms of we're going to buy our audience and we're going to just pay for our way and replace marketing with this tactical execution concept has played itself out, and there's simply nowhere else to go. And this is why you're seeing businesses turn and re-embrace storytelling, strategy, consumer research, et cetera, because they realize that they can't get there without it.
If you would have asked me this, years ago, and I still think this, that the CMO role is needed now more than ever because buyers are increasingly using more channels to make their decisions. And B2B in particular, they need 10 points of interactions, which is a 100% increase from 2016, which says to me that you need more holistic strategy more than ever with more channels to work with. And yet the trend is going the opposite way. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, people don't buy the best brands, they buy the brands they like the best. And so when you take away the ability to like something by simply turning it into a functional solution, you turn it into parody. I don't care about my pencil because a pencil is no different than any other pencil. Now, if I was to suddenly have a pencil brand that did the equivalent of what Nike did for shoes, which is to say, create a perception of difference, then all of a sudden you've got traction. Now, all of a sudden, that pencil is different. It's unique. It's not just a pencil. It's a gateway to creativity, or it's not just a pencil. It's a gateway to mathematics or something larger than the object itself. And so, what businesses have done in the interest of protecting the almighty bottom line is they've removed any reason to care.
Yeah.
And now that nobody cares about anything and everything is parody and they can't innovate their way out of it anymore and they can't beat their salespeople up anymore about it because there's no more juice to squeeze out of the lemon. Now they're forced to say, all right, well, what else can we do? And this is the return to fundamentals because you can't mess with the fundamentals. You can add a bunch of twists and turns to the pipe, but water is still going to go down. And the answer to the question is, why do people care about anything? And the answer is because they see a brand and they get familiar with it. The brand resonates with a need that they have and stays consistent. I know if I get that match that it will always light on the first strike because every time I've ever used it, it does. And that's their promise as a brand. So, absent that, everything is just functional. It's all just pencils in a jar, and who cares about any of them?
Okay. So Forrester says that 64% of CEOs say that they understand modern marketing. Do you think that CMOs think that many CEOs understand modern marketing?
I am convinced that 100% of CMOs think that 64% of CMOs are delusional in some capacity.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, you would be right. The real number is 31%. So I would say that's a pretty sizable gap. So do you think that the problem in this disconnect is just a lack of communication?
Oh, no, 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 no. It goes way deeper than that.
Okay.
Let's go back to the beginning. You've got a couple of things that are fundamentals that are difficult. Number one, the mindset of a CEO almost always comes out of finance or operations.
Sure.
They're always business backgrounds. And so you've got a group of people that are functional based, not emotionally based. So we'll start there. Number two, MBA programs across the country, and I absolutely blame Harvard for this. Harvard, if you're listening, I'm blaming you. Because if you look at their agenda, and so as Harvard goes, does every other MBA program, they could give two rats' asses about marketing. They want to talk about ops, and they want to talk about product market fit, and they want to talk about human resources, and they want to talk about finance, and they want to talk about anything and everything except marketing. And when you read the marketing profile of the professors that are there in MBA programs, with rare exception, Kellogg at Northwestern is one such school that I stand on a soapbox and preach the value of because they actually understand this and teach to it. But for the vast majority, they are unfamiliar with the concept, and the general sense of it is, yeah, run down and get your marketing 101 class or 102 class, but then hurry up back to the important stuff, which is, how to operationalize this thing.
Mhm.
And so you've got those things that are fundamentally true. And then in order to become a CEO, you have to believe about yourself that you are capable of doing anything. And what happens to CEOs is that as they grow in their organizations, they tend to come to the conclusion that nobody but them understands anything or can do anything in the first place. When you add that sandwich together, a lack of familiarity, a lack of value to it, a lack of familiarity to it, a lack of, belief in anybody else in the business being able to get the business or whatever, is it any wonder that it doesn't find its way to the forefront?
Why is this happening in academia?
I don't believe that emotional things have been ever dealt well with in academia. They will throw out a music program before they throw out a math program. They will throw out an art program before they throw out a foreign language program. They would much rather teach something that has a right and a wrong answer because otherwise it becomes subjective and that's difficult for people. Uh, our country is not well equipped to deal with the emotional abstract of anything. So they just don't. Find me a place beyond maybe second grade where emotions are openly dealt with in any real capacity in a classroom. If you have an emotional outburst, you are punished for it. If you stray outside the lines, you're punished for it. The people that we study are the ones that go outside the lines, but while you're in the process of being educated on them, you're expected to stay within them and to behave a certain way. There is very little expansion or acceptance of emotional anything
I've
inside of our
seen this.
universes.
Yeah, and as marketers, we know that a lot of decisions at the top of the funnel are first made with your emotions, and your final decision is logic often. But that emotional touch point up at the top of the funnel is so important. As marketers, how do we convince sales leaders and the C-suite of this?
It's really difficult. I did a post about a year ago and I received a phone call from a guy one day and he got on what was, I thought, supposed to be a discovery call. And he said, I work in sales. I work in sales for a company you would know. It's large. I'm not going to tell you the name. You said something in a TikTok video that really stuck with me, that sales and marketing can be on the same team. This man was in his late 30s.
Mhm.
I said, "This is a new concept to you?" He goes, "I've never heard it. Not once. Sales hates marketing, marketing hates
Oh,
sales."
literally on the same team.
Yeah, they're like, "I don't understand what you mean that we can be aligned. How does that work?" And he literally sat there for 30 minutes with me, probing and getting educated on how you can have a message that is the foundation for brand, that also is the foundation for elevator pitch, innovation,
Oh,
and sales.
absolutely, it needs to be.
And he had never heard this concept, which further supports the distance between I am a salesperson, I know how to sell. I'm a marketer, I know how to market. I'm an ops person, I know how to operate, right? Like it's so unbelievably siloed. What I love most about what I do is watching the light bulb go on, but it is an arduous process. Marketing is not difficult. Getting people to go through the marketing process and go through it successfully, that's where the art is. The function of creating strong creative work isn't in and of itself as complicated as that.
Yeah. As marketers, we're almost always going to complain about our budgets. What are you seeing as an agency leader with marketing budgets right now? Are they changing? Are they going down?
Well, the thing is, marketing budgets as a percent of top line revenue have been higher on the whole, in my opinion, for those businesses that are performance marketing based. And what I mean by that is when you are buying your audience, right? When you think that if I pay $1, I get $2 back, then you would want to spend every single dollar you have because the more you spend, the faster you grow. The problem is that, as any good economist would tell you, there's a frontier after which you can simply no longer shoot the fish in the barrel. They've all been shot. And what happens is that first barrel that you buy in performance marketing is all your perfect target. The next one you buy is 70% your target and 30% somebody else's target. And the next barrel you buy is more like 50-50, and down and down and down it goes. And that's why the cost changes from I pay $1 and I get $3 to I pay $1 and I get 2 to I pay $1 and I get $1, and then all of a sudden I'm upside down and I never even realized it was happening.
Yeah.
In answer to your question, I think the budgets are higher in some cases than they have been, but they are horribly misallocated. I met a company the other day that was spending something like $5 million, was 4.5 or $5 million a month in marketing. All of it was performance.
Yeah.
There was nothing above Amazon level. There was nothing. And another company that I met that was spending similar money, I think theirs was 3.5, 4 million a month, was spending it all on direct mail
Yeah.
and nothing else. This notion of omni-channel visibility, constantly coming in contact with the brand, has become so foreign that people just don't get it anymore.
The direct mail thing is interesting. The ROI on that is so low. It's interesting that that company would be spending so much.
See, and I find that interesting. If you take a look at the average banner ad, the average banner ad is 0.001. It's 1 click in 1,000. The average direct mail piece is 1 to 3% return. You don't have to be a Harvard MBA to understand that the difference there is 1,000 times in your favor. So even when you're talking about a 1 to 3% or a 2 to 4% return on a direct mail piece, over a lot of the digital that's out there, you're talking about a significant return because nobody's using direct mail anymore. And that's really the lesson. The reason that performance marketing is suffering the way that it is right now is because literally everybody is using the same tactics. If you imagine watching a Super Bowl where both teams were using the exact same playbook,
Yeah.
no one would ever score because it would just be back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, move and counter move, because everybody knew what was coming. And that's exactly what's happening now.
With direct mail, at least you get to touch something.
Yeah.
And I've read some things about younger prospects being more responsive to direct mail because they're so used to digital.
I think it is really interesting to watch how media comes in and out of favor. TV is always going to be king. Radio and print are always going to be second fiddles, and then everything else. And, the closer you can get to a video. I mean, I say television now and everybody's like, "Nobody watches TV anymore." And I'm like, TV via Prime is still TV, right? It's a television commercial." So they've mucked all the names up to the point too where it's insanely confusing for most people. Most people wouldn't know the difference between a CTV and a pre-roll and a television commercial, and they're virtually the same thing, just different lengths. Like it's all video commercial. It's just where is it placed and when. It's the same interactive media, however.
You mentioned sports playbooks a minute ago. Let's talk about marketing playbooks and how you've seen some CMOs using, or marketing leaders in general, using some really old ones and expecting them to work in today's environment.
I actually think it's the other way around. I think the old ones are working now because the new ones have been so played out, and that's really the point that I'm making. I think if you ran advertising the way that we used to run advertising now, which is what Liquid Death is doing in many ways, you're getting a much bigger visibility play. They're leaning on guerrilla. They're leaning on print in some ways. They're leaning on packaging. They're leaning on engagement outside of traditional. They're even doing some print. Like they get that you need to be in multiple places to engage multiple audiences. And I ask business leaders that aren't familiar with this concept of top of funnel this question all the time. If you had to make a decision about buying a car right now and I gave you two options, a Honda or a Vroom, which one are you going to tell me you're going to buy? And the answer is always Honda. And when I say why, they say because I've never heard of a Vroom. So they get the idea. When you put it like that, they get it. But then they say, well, I'm marketing. And I'm saying, yeah, but you're only marketing to people who basically just had a flat tire 30 yards down the road and are walking to the nearest tire center to get a tire. They don't care at that moment what brand or anything it is. They just need a tire because they were on their way somewhere and they got a flat. That's in essence what everybody has been marketing to. But when that guy that's walking down the street doesn't just come to one tire center, he comes to 50 tire centers that are all right next to each other. It's just parity. At that point, it's like, well, hell, there's a bunch of people here that are all doing the same thing. So it's the differentiation that's really critical right now to help brands stand out. And that is the old playbook
Okay.
because we're people making the decisions, and you can't break the fact that it's people making decisions, and people always decide the same way. What's in it for me? That's an emotional decision that then is logically justified. So I have to know about something to consider it. I have to understand what the value is so that I can see how it's relevant to me. And then I have to have the support to be able to justify to myself why it was a good idea. When I take those things out of sequence, it cocks up the whole decision making process.
Do you see a decline in, especially with the fact that you're saying that CMOs are increasingly being brought in to fix singular problems? Do you see a decline in overall holistic strategy, say being replaced with A/B testing or AI or something like that, or some smaller strategy and not replacing the bigger picture strategies?
There is no strategy any longer, and you don't have to look hard to find out that that's the case. People have replaced tactics with strategy. They think a strategy is we're going to use SEO and we're going to use this. Like that's tactical
That's attractive.
strategy.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with brand or business strategy. And so I can't find one. I have not seen a company that had a standing brand strategy that we have worked with that's over 100 clients in the last 3 to 5 years. I cannot think of a single one, not one company where we came in and they were like, "This is where we're going. How can you help us iterate on that same thing, but keep the thing intact?" I haven't seen it.
Of course, that's good for an agency.
Well, it's good for an agency if they appreciate that they need it. Like, let's play those dominoes forward. By the time a company truly appreciates or is even open to considering what we're talking about, they have to have lost so much momentum and spent so much money
Yeah.
that at that point now you're just trying to bandage them up. So you've gone from hospital to mash triage, right? Now it's like, give me two sticks and some tape and I'll kind of make a splint out of it, as opposed to, I'm actually going to give you an x-ray and then I'm going to do surgery and I'm going to fix the problem. So by the time this happens, they've expended their resources and their frustration and their time. And they're like, just fix it before I go broke. And that's not a lot to work with. It's like MacGyver, it's like I got a stick of gum and two things of shampoo, make me a bomb. And you're like, well, you got gum and a shampoo. I'm not really sure what I can do for you here. So, yeah, it's great theoretically on paper. In reality, nobody understands how long it takes. Nobody understands the steps involved. Like you have to start all over again with the education process because they've forgotten it or they never knew it. The guys that taught me, the old New York guys that taught me how to do this, that was still back when you joined an agency in your 20s right out of school and you never left the agency. That's where the whole agency
Happening
man
anymore, yeah.
concept was.
Yeah.
So, you went into DMB&B and you were there for your entire career. You were a DDB person or you were a BBDO person. That concept is so foreign now.
Yeah.
So the practitioners don't know it and the people asking for it don't know what they're asking for. It is a fantastic opportunity, but it is also a tremendously deep, cavernous
And you have to see the
abyss.
problem in order to fix it.
Yeah, you can't fix what you don't recognize.
How do you recommend that the CMOs left standing that they fix this?
The first thing is to understand what it is that they're trying to achieve. Slow down. Slow down enough to actually decide where you're going. Like this reactionary thing of like, we live Friday to Friday, right? Like, how many things did we sell on Wednesday and what did we sell on Thursday? You might be winning the daily battle, but you are certainly losing the war.
You're
And
chasing your tail.
I'm watching these companies fail into acquisition, right? And you can watch this because it happens. It's cyclical, right? Businesses start growing, they become successful, they overextend, they over innovate. Next thing you know, they get bought by somebody. Now all of a sudden they're an ATM and they underperform until they get, bought up by other groups. And then they're a part of a portfolio and then eventually they close. And like you can watch this cycle over and over and over again, like, so much bread in a toaster. The businesses that actually want to turn things around have to take, we refer to it as the pit of despair. You have to wait a few months to get your shit together again so that you can come out and succeed well above what you were doing. But if you're not willing to go through the pit of despair, what you're going to do instead is you're going to say, okay, I don't want the operation to fix the bullet hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suffer 1,000 drops of blood until I bleed out. Like it just doesn't make any sense at all. But they don't look at it that way. They say, I can hit a number by Friday. And the real tell is when you start adjusting your numbers. This is like the quintessential tell. If you got to the end of your quarter and you tell yourself as a leadership team, we were just too aggressive, we put too big of a growth goal, that was really a stretch goal. That is the biggest indicator that you're underperforming in a way that is significant to the company. Because unless you just happen to be a leadership team that likes banging its head on the wall, every company comes out in the beginning and is like, we're going to get 5% this year and we're going to, 50% growth and whatever. And then they realize that they can't do that. And then the next year they're more conservative and they say, okay, realistically, given the economic climate and the competitors that we have and wherever we are with innovation and product development, we should realistically be able to get to here.
Yeah.
When that nonsense starts, when you start saying, "Oh, well, that was really a stretch goal. Next year we should drop that down by 20% because we could never hit that." Then the next quarter you drop it again, and the next quarter you drop it again, and the next quarter you're not growing at all. I'm like literally watching companies do that to themselves around the clock.
Sure. What are CMOs doing wrong?
No strategy. It's all tactical execution. There's no thinking.
Is this their fault or is this the hiring process and the general market right now?
It's really a couple of things. Number one is that there is no patience by the executive leadership teams to hear or learn anything new, right? I've got shareholders, I've got accountability, hurry up and make it happen. I don't care how you do it, right? That's one side. The other side is what CMO has been taught to stand their ground anymore? The guys that I used to, again, and I'm not romanticizing them, they were a huge pain in the ass most of the time. But the guys that I grew up with, the guys that I watched do this, that I learned from, that were 20 years, 30 years older than me and were doing this, these were the guys that would argue with clients and they would stand their ground and they would say, no, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And if you don't do this, it was the Bob Hoffman's or whatever, that the famous story about him selling matzah and the guy in the room, the CEO, tried to tell him what to do and he throws open the window on the 20th floor or 30th floor or whatever and goes out on the ledge and says, if you don't do what I'm going to do, I'm going to fucking jump. Like who stands their ground anymore? Where are the stories like that? CEO hasn't heard the word no and they get kingitis, right? It's like, well, I must be right all the time because nobody ever says no. No, you're in an insulated bubble of decline that nobody wants to talk
We
about.
need to say no more.
Yes, absolutely you do. I mean, look at it this way. Would you tell your dentist how to drill your tooth? No. Would you tell your plumber how to fix your plumbing? No. But the minute marketing is involved, people walk right in the door and say,
Everybody can do marketing.
I know, I'll know when I see it. No, you won't. You don't have the first clue what we're trying to do over here or why we're trying to do it.
Okay. What are we doing right?
Well, we have perfected performance marketing.
Yeah.
I could say that. And I think that we're coming out of the darkness. I think, what the McKinsey report really showed that I found such promise in is the fact that companies are figuring it out. I mean, the Wall Street Journal just ran an ad, a huge ad that was talking about everybody this year is looking for storytellers. That's surprising, especially from the Wall Street Journal. And on the heels of the McKinsey thing and on the heels of other groups, they wouldn't talk about it, but LinkedIn about 2 years ago actually did a thing at the Digital Summit in Raleigh where they were like, yeah, so it was funny too because it was at like 4:30 on the last day when everybody's already at the bar. They had this one last thing where LinkedIn came in and they were like, performance marketing isn't performing anymore. free drinks at the bar, right? And like they ran out of the room crying. But I have pictures of those slides standing in the back of the room, snapping pictures of the presentation because I'm like, I can't believe one of the big entities is admitting this, but they were. And that was 2 years ago. So all of this slide has been coming. Now it's just a question of what do we do about it?
Let's put together an action plan for CMOs and marketing leaders to swing this pendulum a little bit. Say no, okay, and focus more on brand strategy and all that.
Let's get specific about it. Number one, almost every company is upside down in terms of its numbers. Find out where you're making money and where you're not making money, and make a plan on where you can cut from the places that you aren't. Second, figure out your marketing strategy. I'm not talking about a new set of executions yet. I'm talking about what is the one story you're going to tell. Volvo tells the story of safe.
Say
Mercedes tells the story of luxury. Figure out your one thing and get back to it. Then go to the senior leadership team and say, listen, 80% of our dollars come from 20% of our products or whatever. We're overextended. We're spending money on innovation we don't need to be spending. What percent of market share do we have? Before you go investing in new products to satisfy the existing customer base, are you over 10% market share? Because if you're not, far easier to go take a product that's already proven and tested and convince a new person to come into the fold than it is to sit there and innovate and develop and do R&D and do packaging and new distribution and manufacturing and operation and oversight and hiring and all the rest of that that it requires to bring a new product to line. If you go back to the fundamentals and just say, what are we good at? How can we streamline back to profitability? What is the message strategy that we need to have? What part of the audience have we already successfully gained and what part is still out there? And what can we do to go get those people? You will be far more productive financially and profitable than you will be to continue to extend yourself.
marketing needs to be involved in some way in product strategy.
Every business that I have met that is successful puts marketing at the front above all the rest of it. Because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing,
Why are you
then
doing?
everything you do becomes subjective. And when everything you do is subjective, you are doomed to fail.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else we didn't touch on about the CMO tenure that is important?
I wouldn't be a full-time CMO right now if you held a gun to my head. I mean, I think it is so hard
Yeah.
to go into an environment where the politics are already in place. Some CMO was just fired. You're supposed to clean up the mess that you didn't know how it became a mess in the first place. Like, seriously, walking in, I would have to have something so ironed out where it was, listen, this is what I'm here to solve. Let's all write it down on a piece of paper. We're going to talk about this every week. Is what we're talking about today still what we were supposed to be talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I would not stray off of that. And if I was a growth minded company, I would be willing to hire somebody who actually knew something about brand and bringing a brand to life and alignment around a concept
Yeah.
than I would before I brought in a tactician.
Yeah.
Because the tacticians, you can only SEO your way so far.
It's opposite. Companies, yeah, especially startups that are get their first big round of funding, they hire the tactician first.
Yeah. They say, well, I don't need an agency. I need SEO. So I'll hire an SEO agency.
Yeah.
I can't tell you over the last 10 months, every client that we've gotten under the hood on is spending money they don't even know they're spending.
Yeah.
Like the first thing we do now as a part of our process doesn't even start with strategy the way that you think about it. It's understanding the lay of the land. Like, and this really gets back to the point that you made at the beginning of the podcast, which was, is our role changing to include some business application? And the answer to the question is yes. If marketing can see where dollars are being spent, we have the ability to say, hey, look at what this really is. You're making all of your money here. And it's very much a consulting role. That's what a PricewaterhouseCooper or an Accenture would do. They'd walk in and say, where's your revenue coming from? Oh, it's coming from those 15 items. Well, then why are you selling 45 items?
Mhm.
Well, because we always have. Like, you got to get past that thinking before anything else you do is really going to work.
So the CMO needs, especially the new one, needs to come in and obviously understand the business strategy and understand the one big story, and keep everybody aligned every week and make sure that this is not changing.
Yeah, and they need to be able to look at profitability of the company. And the reason that I say that is because, going back to the earlier example, if you're selling 15 products that you sell really well, but you've got 45 products to sell, your marketing dollars are stretched over those 45 different initiatives, right? And so your ability to focus on the thing that you're really good at that would help get you the additional market share, that would get you the momentum you need to scale, is now being diversified among products that don't represent 2 or 3% of your total income.
Okay.
If you can't rectify that, you can't get enough dollars behind the thing to have the momentum you need to be able to get the brand to scale.
Yeah.
So that's just simple math.
Well, Bill, thank you for being on High Intent. I really appreciate all your candid opinions here, and it was really fun to talk to you.
I appreciate you having me on. Thanks so very much. I look
Yeah.
forward to talking again.
You bet.